Okay, so get ready because we're diving deep into one of Australia's most enduring mysteries.
Absolutely. And we're going to break it down just for you.
Yeah, all those articles and reports about the Somerton Man?
Yeah, you don't have to go through all of that.
Right. The unidentified body found on that beach in South Australia in 1948.
I mean, this case is one that throws you for a loop right from the start.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to get into why it's held our attention for so long.
Exactly. And I think what's interesting about it is it's not just a whodunit.
Right. It's like a who was he?
Yeah, who was this guy?
And what happened? Like, how did he even end up here?
Yeah.
And we've got everything from the initial discovery, which is just baffling, to the latest potential breakthroughs.
Right.
We're going to guide you through the key details, all the strange clues and the theories that have been swirling around this case for over 70 years.
Right. So let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
December 1st, 1948. Early in the morning.
Yep.
A couple is taking a stroll on Somerton Park Beach, just south of Adelaide.
You know, just a normal,
Just a nice little stroll on the beach.
beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
Yeah.
And they find...
Around 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, pretty early.
Yeah, they come across a man lying in the sand near the seawall.
Right, and you would think, oh, maybe he's just, sleeping it off.
Having a little snooze.
Yeah, but then you start to notice these little details that are just a little bit off.
Like a half-smoked cigarette resting on his collar.
Yeah, and then when you go to check his pockets for ID just to see who he is.
You find the weirdest stuff.
The weirdest stuff.
It's just a jumble of things that don't make sense.
Like what?
Well, there's an unused train ticket
Okay.
to Henley Beach,
Uh-huh.
which is in the opposite direction of where he was found.
So that's odd.
Yeah, and then there's a bus ticket.
Okay.
Also looks like it hasn't been used.
All right.
An American-made comb,
Interesting.
some juicy fruit chewing gum.
Okay.
And here's the kicker, an Army Club cigarette packet, but it's filled with Kanzita cigarettes.
So a totally different brand.
Yeah, totally different brand.
Like he just emptied it out and put...
Emptied it out and put his own in there.
That's so strange.
Yeah, and no wallet.
No wallet.
No driver's license. No, nothing.
It's like he didn't want to be identified.
It's like he wanted to be a ghost.
Right. And what's even more unsettling is that the night before, on November 30th,
Okay.
there were several witnesses who reported seeing a man matching his description in the same spot.
So the day before.
The day before in the evening.
Interesting.
One couple, around 7 p.m., saw him extend his arm,
Oh, really?
and then it just dropped limply.
So, like, he was waving to somebody, and then...
He was waving, and then just like
he lost all strength?
yeah.
Wow.
And then another couple noticed him later that evening, and he hadn't moved for about half an hour.
Oh, my God.
And he didn't even react to mosquitoes.
Like, they were biting him, and he wasn't even flinching.
No, nothing. And they just thought, oh, maybe he's drunk or asleep.
Right. You wouldn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
You just think he's passed out.
Yeah. But then another witness saw someone standing at the top of nearby steps, looking down at him.
Looking down at this guy.
Just watching him.
Yeah. Oh, that's creepy.
Right, so you have all these people seeing someone who looks like the Somerton Man the night before.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, was he already deceased?
Or was he, like, really sick?
Or incapacitated somehow, yeah.
Or just taking a very, very sound sleep.
Yeah.
But the mosquitoes are a huge red flag.
Right, because who doesn't react to mosquitoes?
You'd think you'd at least brush them away.
Yeah, that's really strange.
That suggests to me that something was really wrong with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have been unconscious, maybe,
Right, right.
but we don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a weird detail.
And then to make things even weirder,
Weirder.
later on, a witness came forward in 1959.
So this is much later.
Much later, 11 years later.
Wow.
And he claimed that he and 3 other people saw a well-dressed man carrying another man
Oh my God.
over his shoulders along the beach the night before.
Like carrying a body. Potentially?
Yeah.
Okay, so that could be our guy.
It could be. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, you have to wonder about the reliability of the memory after so much time.
Right.
But it's an interesting detail that adds another layer to the mystery.
For sure.
So we've got this mysterious man on the beach.
Yeah.
No ID.
No ID, weird stuff in his pockets.
Seen acting strangely the night before, potentially carried by another person.
Right.
What do we know about what he looked like?
Well, when the pathologist, Dr. John Burton Cleland, examined him,
Okay.
he thought that he might be of British descent,
Okay.
around 40 to 45 years old in good physical condition.
Okay. So middle-aged, relatively healthy.
Yeah. And he was fairly tall.
Mm-hmm.
He had gray eyes, fair to ginger hair,
Okay.
broad shoulders, narrow waist.
Okay. So pretty fit.
Yeah. And some unusual physical characteristics.
Like what?
Well, his big and little toes met in a wedge shape.
Interesting.
And he had really pronounced high calf muscles,
Ah,
which the pathologist thought maybe he was wearing boots with high heels.
or like a ballet dancer.
Yeah, maybe a ballet dancer. I mean, who knows?
That's a stretch, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just an interesting detail.
Interesting, yeah.
So we got a picture of what this guy looked like.
Yeah, but then his clothes were also strange.
How so?
Well, he was dressed like you'd expect.
Okay.
White shirt, red, white, and blue tie, brown trousers, socks and shoes,
Okay.
brown knitted pullover, a fashionable gray and brown double-breasted jacket.
Okay, so normal clothes for the time.
Normal clothes, but here's the thing. All the labels on his clothes were removed?
All the labels were removed.
Like someone meticulously went through?
Why would you do that?
I don't know, right?
That's so weird.
And he wasn't wearing a hat, which apparently was unusual for men at the time.
Interesting.
And still no wallet, no identifying documents, anything.
It's like this guy vanished into thin air.
It really is like he just wanted to be a complete mystery.
Yeah, a mystery wrapped in an enigma.
Right.
But the mystery deepens with the autopsy.
Right, so tell me about the autopsy. What did they find? So the autopsy showed some pretty unsettling things.
Like what?
Well, his heart seemed normal,
Okay.
but there was congestion in a lot of his organs.
Okay.
His brain, his lungs, his digestive system.
Like something wasn't working properly?
No, not at all.
That.
And his spleen was huge, like 3 times its normal size.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was evidence of liver damage.
So clearly something was very wrong.
Yes. The pathologist concluded that his death was not natural.
Okay.
He suspected poisoning.
Poisoning.
Yeah, probably a barbiturate or some other soluble hypnotic.
So like a sleeping pill or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But here's the catch. Despite all sorts of toxicological tests,
Yeah.
they couldn't find any trace of any known poison.
So they suspected poisoning but couldn't prove it.
Right. It's like the poison was invisible.
That's so strange.
They did figure out his last meal, though.
What was it?
It was a pasty.
A pasty.
Yeah, it looks like he ate it a few hours before he died.
So sometime the day before.
Yeah, most likely. So we have this unidentified man dead under very suspicious circumstances.
Right.
No clear cause of death and no idea who he is.
It's a real dead end.
Yeah, a total mystery. But then a few weeks later, there's another discovery that might be connected.
Okay, this is getting interesting. Tell me more.
So on January 14th, 1949, railway staff at the Adelaide station find a brown suitcase.
Okay.
And someone had removed the label.
Okay, so we're back to the no labels thing again.
Right, it's like a pattern.
Yeah.
It had been checked into the cloakroom
Okay.
after 11 a.m. on November 30th.
The day before the body was found.
Exactly.
So investigators thought it must belong to the Somerton Man.
That's the working theory.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and inside this suitcase is a whole other bunch of weird stuff.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, there's a red checked dressing gown.
Okay.
Slippers, underwear, pajamas.
Like he was going on vacation or something.
Right. It's like he packed for a trip.
Yeah.
And then shaving gear.
Okay.
A pair of light brown trousers with sand in the cuffs.
Sand in the cuffs.
Yeah, like he'd been walking on the beach.
Right.
An electrician's screwdriver.
Okay.
A table knife that had been sharpened to a point.
Okay. That's a little creepy.
Yeah, a pair of scissors also sharpened.
Right.
A square of zinc. And a stenciling brush, like the kind they use on ships.
Like what you'd use to paint the name of the ship on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got toiletries, clothes, tools, weapons, art supplies.
It's like a random assortment of stuff you'd find at a flea market.
It's so bizarre. Why would he have all of this?
We don't know.
This is a strange case.
It really is one of the strangest I've ever come across.
So is there anything in the suitcase that actually links it back to the Somerton Man?
Well, there's this thread card.
Okay.
With Barber orange waxed thread.
Right.
It's described as an unusual type.
Okay.
And it's not commonly found in Australia.
So it's something that's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this thread matched the repair stitching in the pocket of the trousers that the Somerton Man was wearing.
When they found him on the beach.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a pretty strong link.
Yeah. It's pretty strong evidence that the suitcase belonged to him.
Right.
But then there were the name tags.
Right, because we're still trying to figure out who this guy is.
Yeah, we still don't have a name.
Right.
So there was a tie in there with the name T. Keen on it.
Okay.
A laundry bag with just Keen.
Okay.
And a singlet with Keen.
So like someone was trying to remove the T?
Or maybe it was just a mistake.
Right.
Who knows? But they did a nationwide search for anyone named T. Keene who was missing. Nothing, no one matching that description was ever found.
To another dead end.
Yeah. And there were dry cleaning marks on some of the items.
Okay.
But they couldn't trace those marks back to any specific dry cleaner.
Oh, so frustrating.
Right?
Like every time you think you have something,
It just leads to nowhere.
it just leads to nowhere.
But there was one more clue. The coat in the suitcase was American-made.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So maybe he'd been to the U.S. or...
Or he got it from someone who had... But then again, there were no socks in the suitcase.
No socks.
Nope. And no letters or any personal correspondence.
So strange.
There was unused stationery, though.
Like he was planning to write letters but never did.
Maybe.
So the police came up with a theory based on all this.
They did.
What did they think?
They thought that he had arrived in Adelaide by train,
Okay.
maybe from Melbourne, Sydney, or Port Augusta,
Right.
and that he might have gone to the city baths.
Which is a...
It's a public swimming pool.
Okay, not just bath.
Not just baths.
Okay.
And then he went to the railway station,
Okay.
bought that Henley Beach train ticket that he never used,
Right.
checked in his suitcase, and then took a bus to Glenelg.
Where Somerton Beach is.
Right.
So it kind of fits with the evidence.
Yeah, it's a plausible sequence of events.
Right.
But it's still just a theory.
Right.
So then we get to the inquest.
Okay, the formal inquest.
Yeah, where the coroner, Thomas Erskine Cleland,
Okay.
really dug into the evidence. And he noticed something interesting about the man's shoes.
His shoes? What about them?
They were really clean,
Really clean.
almost like they'd been recently polished.
But he'd supposedly been walking around all day.
Right, and on a sandy beach.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird.
Very weird.
Yeah, and it made the coroner think that maybe the body had been moved to the beach after death.
Oh, okay. So maybe he died somewhere else, and then someone put him on the beach.
Exactly, and that could also explain why there weren't any signs of poisoning, like vomiting or convulsions.
Yeah. Because those might have happened somewhere else.
Right.
And then they just brought him to the beach later.
It's possible. And the coroner also pointed out that none of the witnesses who saw the man the night before
Right.
could definitively say that it was the same guy who was found dead.
Oh, interesting.
So it could have been two different people.
But it seems unlikely because it was in the same spot.
Yeah, it's probably the same guy.
Right.
But the idea that he might have died somewhere else and been placed on the beach,
Right.
that's still on the table.
Interesting.
Then there was the testimony from Professor Cedric Stanton Hicks.
Okay.
He was an expert in physiology and pharmacology.
Okay. So he knew a lot about drugs and how they affect the body.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he said that certain drugs like digitalis and uabane,
Okay.
which are cardiac glycosides,
Okay.
meaning they affect the heart,
Okay.
could be super toxic,
Okay.
even in tiny doses.
Wow.
Yeah, and back in 1948,
Yeah.
they were really hard to detect.
So even if he was poisoned with one of those drugs?
It might not have shown up in the tests.
Right.
He also mentioned that there wasn't any vomiting in the autopsy report,
Right.
which is weird because you'd usually expect that with poisoning.
Yeah.
But he said that it's not always present.
Okay.
So it just makes it harder to say for sure what happened.
Right. And then he said something else that was really creepy.
What was that?
He said that if the man died several hours after the last time anyone saw him moving,
Right.
it might mean that he was given a massive dose of poison.
A huge dose.
Yeah. And it could still be undetectable, even with modern methods.
Wow. That's scary.
Right.
And then he suggested that the arm movement that one couple saw around 7 p.m.,
The waving,
yeah, that might have been a final convulsion, not a sign of life.
like his body was shutting down.
Yeah.
Oh, it's disturbing.
It is. It's a really unsettling thought.
So the coroner thought it was probably poison.
Yeah, he seemed pretty convinced that it was intentional poisoning.
But he couldn't say for sure.
Nope, and he definitely couldn't figure out who the guy was.
Right.
And he even said that if the body had been moved to the beach,
Right.
all the difficulties would disappear.
Because then it would make sense why his shoes were clean.
Exactly, and why no one saw him die.
Right. So that was the big mystery.
Yeah, it was a puzzle with a lot of missing pieces.
And they just couldn't put it together.
Right?
So what happened after the inquest?
Well, the authorities tried to identify him.
Okay.
They made a plaster cast of his head and shoulders,
Okay.
took photographs, and circulated them everywhere. Yeah.
But no one recognized him.
No missing person reports.
Nope.
And no matches in any databases.
Nothing.
So it was like he never existed.
Yeah, it was like he just appeared out of thin air and then vanished again.
And then, to make things even more mysterious,
Not as serious.
there was the Tamam Shud paper.
What?
Yeah, so tell me about that.
Okay, so they found this tiny piece of paper
Okay.
rolled up in a hidden pocket.
A hidden pocket?
Yeah, it was sewn into his trousers.
Oh, wow.
And it had the words tamam shud printed on it
Okay.
in Persian.
What does that mean?
It means it is over or it is finished.
Okay.
And they figured out that it's a phrase from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
The Rubaiyat. Okay, I've heard of that. What is that?
It's this collection of Persian poems.
Okay.
And the tamam shud is usually in the last page.
Interesting.
And the back of this tiny piece of paper was blank.
Blank?
Totally blank.
So weird.
I know, right? So suddenly this local mystery becomes something bigger. Right, because now we've got a connection to Persian poetry.
Exactly.
So what do they do with that information?
They started searching for a copy of the Rubaiyat
Okay.
that this piece of paper might have come from.
One that had a blank back page.
Exactly.
You know, so like a needle in a haystack.
Pretty much.
And did they find it?
They did.
They did.
Yeah, this guy came forward.
Okay.
He had a 1941 New Zealand edition
Okay.
of Edward Fitzgerald's translation of the Rubaiyat.
Okay.
And he said he hadn't thought about it until he saw a newspaper article about the Tamam Shud paper.
Oh, so he just happened to have this book.
Yeah, he just had it lying around.
Okay.
And where did they find this book?
I don't know where was it.
It was in an unlocked car.
An unlocked car.
Yeah.
Parked on Jetty Road in Glenelg.
Not far from where the body was found.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. So many coincidences.
I know, right?
Okay, so what about the Rubaiyat itself?
Well, the poems in the Rubaiyat are all about living life to the fullest
Okay.
and accepting death. So kind of fitting for this case.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah,
So the police started thinking maybe this was a suicide.
right. Because of the poison and the "it is finished" message.
Exactly. But they still couldn't prove he'd been poisoned.
Right.
And the last page of this book,
Yeah.
the one with the Tamam Shud phrase on it,
Right.
it was ripped out.
He was ripped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they did some microscopic analysis,
Okay.
and they confirmed that the tiny piece of paper found on the Somerton Man
Yeah.
came from that very book.
From that exact book.
Yeah, it was a match.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now we have a direct link between the book and the Somerton Man.
Right. But there's more.
There's more.
There's always more with this case.
What else did they find?
So they looked at the back cover of the book
Okay.
really closely,
Uh,
and they found these faint indentations.
indentations.
Yeah, like someone had written something on a piece of paper
Right.
that was on top of the book,
Okay.
and it left these marks.
Okay, what did the indentations say?
Well, they were 5 lines of capital letters
Okay.
and a phone number.
The phone number.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, and what about the letters?
The second line looked like it had been crossed out,
Okay.
and there was an X above one of the letters in the first line.
So clearly this wasn't just random scribbles.
Right. It seemed like some kind of code.
A secret message.
Maybe.
Okay, well, what did the letters say?
Okay, so the first line was W-R-Ju-A-Bab.
W-R-U-A-B.
Yep. The second line was M-L-I-A-O-I.
M-L-I-A-O-I, and that one was crossed out.
Yeah, someone had struck it out.
Okay.
Third line was W-T-Bim and Titi.
W-T-BIM and T-P.
Yep. Okay,
what?
fourth line was M-L-I-A-B-O-I-I-A-Q-C.
M-L-I-A-B-O-I-Q-C. Okay, these are long.
Yeah.
And the last one,
The fifth line was I-T-T-M-T-T-I-S-M-S-D-F-T grab.
I-T-T-M-T-F-M-S-D gap.
Right.
Okay, and people have been trying to figure out what this means.
Oh, yeah, ever since they were discovered.
Right.
So they first thought maybe it was a foreign language,
Okay.
but then they started thinking it was some kind of cipher.
Like a secret code.
Yeah.
And have they cracked it?
Not really.
Really?
Nope. Cryptography experts have looked at it. Amateur code breakers have been trying to decipher it for years.
70 years.
70 years, and nothing.
Nothing.
No one's come up with a solution that makes sense.
That the authorities agree on.
Right, because there's lots of theories,
Okay.
but none of them have been conclusive.
So what are some of the theories?
Well, back in 1978,
Okay.
the Australian Department of Defense had a look
Okay.
for a TV show,
Okay.
and they said that the message was too short
Okay.
to be able to crack it.
So not enough letters to work with.
Right.
Okay.
They said that if it was a real code, there weren't enough characters to get a clear meaning.
Okay.
And they even said it could just be random gibberish.
Just someone doodling?
Yeah.
Okay.
But more recent analyses,
Yeah.
they've used computational linguistics.
Hmm.
And they think maybe the letters are initials.
Initials for words.
Yeah, like an acronym.
Okay.
But no one's been able to figure out what the words are.
So the code is still a mystery.
It's still a mystery.
Wow. Okay, so what about that phone number?
Oh, yeah, the phone number.
That was in the back of the book.
The one they found in the car?
Yeah.
Well, it belonged to a woman named Jessica Ellen Thompson.
Jessica Ellen Thompson.
Yeah, okay. But everyone called her Jo.
Okay, Joe Thompson.
And she was a nurse
Okay.
living in Glenelg,
Okay.
near where they found the body.
Right.
Yeah. So the police went to talk to her.
Of course. Oh, what did she say?
She said she had no idea who this guy was.
You didn't recognize him?
Nope.
Okay.
And she couldn't explain why he would have her number.
Right.
Or why he was in her suburb.
Right.
But she did say that around late 1948,
Okay.
this unidentified man had tried to visit her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he had asked a neighbor about her.
So someone was looking for her.
Yeah.
Okay. But she didn't know who it was?
She said she didn't know.
Okay.
But the detective who investigated the case years later,
Okay.
a guy named Jerry Feltus, he said that when he interviewed her, she was really evasive.
Evasive.
Yeah, like she wasn't telling the whole story.
Interesting.
Yeah, he thought she knew way more than she was letting on.
Really?
Even the guy's real identity.
Wow.
And her own daughter said the same thing in 2014.
Wow. So even her family thought she was hiding something.
Yeah, it's like she knew a secret and she took it to her grave.
Right.
And she even asked the police not to keep her name on record.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't want her name associated with the case.
Because she thought it would damage her reputation.
Exactly.
And the police agreed.
They did.
Which kind of backfired because then everyone started calling her different names.
Yeah, like Justin and Mrs. Thompson.
Right. It just made things more confusing.
Yeah, it didn't help.
Okay, so back to the police interview.
Right.
They showed her the plaster cast of the Somerton Man's head.
Yeah.
Did she recognize him?
She said she didn't.
Okay.
But the detective who was there,
Yeah.
he said that she had this really strong reaction.
Oh, really? What kind of reaction?
Like she was about to faint.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the guy who made the cast,
Who?
he said that she just glanced at it and then turned away.
Like she didn't want to look at it.
Yeah, it was really strange.
Wow. So that suggests that maybe she did recognize him?
Right, like she knew him but didn't want to say.
Right.
It's a very suspicious reaction. Like
Yeah.
she was hiding something.
And then she dropped another bombshell.
What was that?
She said that she used to have a copy of the Rubaiyat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when she was working as a nurse in Sydney during World War II.
You okay?
And in 1945,
Yeah.
she gave the book to an Australian Army lieutenant
Okay.
named Alf Boxall.
Alf Boxall. Okay, so now we've got another name
Right.
and another copy of the Rubaiyat.
Right. And so, of course, the police thought,
They thought maybe this guy was involved somehow.
right, maybe he's the Somerton Man.
Yeah, or maybe he poisoned him.
Right.
So they went to find him. They
They
found
got
him.
him.
Yeah. In
Oh.
July 1949. He was alive and well, still in the army in Sydney.
So not the Somerton Man.
Nope.
Okay.
And he confirmed that Jessica had given him a copy of the Rubaiyat,
Right.
but it was a different edition.
Okay, so not the one connected to the case.
Right.
Okay. His copy still had the last page.
With the Tamam Shud.
Yeah, it was all there.
So he definitely wasn't the Somerton Man.
Right. He was completely in the clear.
But it just makes the Jessica Thompson connection even weirder.
Totally.
Like, what was going on with her?
I know, right?
And you mentioned that she had signed the book she gave to Boxall.
Yeah, she signed it Justin.
Justin?
Yeah, and she wrote out a verse from the poem.
What was the verse about?
It was about repentance in spring.
Repentance in spring. That's kind of cryptic.
Yeah, it's hard to know what she meant by that,
Right.
but it's another detail that just adds to the mystery.
Right. So what was the public reaction to all of this?
Well, the newspapers in Adelaide,
The Advertiser and the news.
yeah, they went crazy with the
It's-
story.
Because it's such a bizarre case. Right? It was like something out of a spy.